decided I was done being in the hospital. I was done living in the hospital. It was a teaching hospital that I was at, and one of the things that happened first thing in the morning before even my oncologist would round is the students would come in with the head, whoever the lead doctor was that was doing the teaching, and they would just stand around the end of my bed, and the doctor would explain, he'd read my chart, which is always the same thing, and the kids would all sit there with the same look on their face, and they would just stare at me. And one morning I looked at the doctor and I said, I just don't want you to come in anymore. I said, I appreciate that everyone's here and learning, and I don't know that anyone's learning from me anymore. I said, none of the kids ask questions. None of the students ask questions. You don't say anything. I sit here and feel like a freak show in a circus. And so I asked them to stop coming. And it was almost in that instant that I realized I'm the patient. Like, I'm not a prisoner, and I felt like a prisoner. So that day, when every doctor came in, I told every single doctor that I wanted to go home, and I wanted to go home tomorrow. So they looked at me like I was crazy, and they would read my chart and figure out, okay, I'm the kidney doctor, what do I do? I'm the liver doctor, what do I do? I'm the oncologist, what do I do? And at the end of the day, there was nothing that they could do that they weren't doing. So why wouldn't I go home and see my kids and heal there? Because the hospitals suck. So that's what I did. I told them I wanted to go home. And ironically, by the end of that night, I had gotten permission that each one of my doctors was going to release me, because they knew, and I finally knew, that medically they were doing everything that they could to save me. So instead of having an IV in my arm, which now was 2 months of sleeping with needles in my arm, in my wrist, I was purple from all the pokes. I was over it. I was just over it. And so I would take the pills instead of the liquid version of prednisone, and I wanted to go home. So the next morning, my nurse came in and she said that they have my discharge instructions, and I got to go home that day. So I made the calls. I told my sister, I told my kids, and I started packing, because finally, I was able to go home the end of April in 2021 after 2 months of living at Thompson Peak Medical Center on Scottsdale Road. I got to go home.